Hello, I'm Dr. Vanessa Harbour from the University of Winchester. I'd like to thank the organisers for the opportunity to present. I noted in their letter of acceptance and instructions that they would welcome innovative and exciting videos. Please forgive me, there is nothing all bells and whistles about this presentation. A combination of a huge marking pile and the side effects of the second COVID vaccine has meant it's just me and the internal PowerPoint, I'm afraid. Anyway, after that caveat, let's move on with another one. This paper is speculative. I have no answers and I'm asking questions. I'm putting forward my perspective and the situation I am in. If you have thoughts and ideas, I would welcome them. Also, purely for the purpose of brevity within this paper alone, I'm combining the idea of middle grade fiction, which is normally aimed at 9 to 12-13-year-olds, and young adult fiction, which is more contentious and fluid in its definition, but within the UK tends to be 14 plus, under the single umbrella term of children's books. In the past, I have written both. It's not something I would normally do, as they are very different age bandings. I have a portfolio career. I am an academic, a senior lecturer in creating writing, who has lectured across a broad range of subjects. Since 2007, I supervise PhDs. I've done the admin stuff, including being a program leader, validations, external examining, and I currently sit on the working group for REF, Unit of Assessment 27. I should probably highlight, I came to academia late. I completed my PhD in 2011. It was a practice-led PhD, which included writing a young adult novel. I have previously supported aspiring writers too through a commercial organisation. And prior to academia, I was a management and PR consultant who had their own business. Basically, you name it, I've done it. Currently, I'm in the process of planning and writing some short online courses for aspiring writers that I hope to make accessible for those who don't want to study creative writing academically. You see, you can't take the entrepreneurial spirit out of someone. It always finds a way to reappear. Or probably the more honest answer is I have a low boredom threshold. Once I've done something for a while, I'm always looking for the next project. And also, more importantly, I am an author. My novel Flight was published by Firefly in 2018, the cover on the left, and by Faywell and Friends in the US this year, that's the cover on the right. It's a middle grade novel which is based at the end of the Second World War. It's an adventure story. It was shortlisted for the Sheffield Children's Book Award and longlisted for the Branford Bowes. Empathy Lab UK picked it up for the Read for Empathy Guide 2020, and the book was also sent to every primary school in Wales by the Book Council for Wales as part of a pack used to discuss mental health and well-being. Safe, the sequel to Flight, will be published next year, also by Firefly. As I mentioned, I write novels. They are fiction for children. There are some, but not all, that just don't see this as either an appropriate academic subject or even a serious form of writing. As I mentioned in my title, I would be a rich woman if I was given £1 for every time I was asked, when are you going to write a proper book? Andrew Melrose sums it up perfectly when he stated that the whole idea of writing for children is all too often swamped by the idea that it is not a serious job. Martin Amis further reinforces these opinions with comments like this. Many of us find that getting our creative practice taken seriously is hard enough, but if you write for children, the battle is that bit harder. This is why I'm thinking about REF 2028 now. You may think I'm crazy and this is too far ahead, but I'd rather be over-prepared. Plus, a lot of what I'm doing goes towards knowledge exchange, and we know we're always being asked for data on that. First of all, I'm going to situate children's books, why they're important as an output and should be taken more seriously. But then one of the concerns I have is that impact is often limited when thinking about writing children's fiction, and I believe it has a broader scope which I wish to find ways of measuring and reflecting effectively, which I will be discussing in this paper. Like Philip Pullman, who states he doesn't think about his audience, when I first write, I don't think about mine. I'm writing my story and getting that down first. It's only when I start the editing process that I might be aware of the audience. I might not think about audience until editing, but I will think about it then, because it's important to understand that a children's story is a big story told short. Or as Melrose has highlighted here, an accomplished story for children must have the same fundamental ingredients as a story for adults. Children's stories are always full of depth and complexities. The characters are well-rounded and the plots are often fast-paced and thrilling. They can make for a challenging read. This is why I believe so many adults turn to children's books. It was previously reported that 55% of all young adult fiction was read by adults. Well, Dr. Joy in her study suggested that adults read children's books because it allowed them to retreat from the disappointment of the real world. Maybe this is true, but don't we all read in order to escape, to retreat from reality? Personally, I think adults read children's books because they are good, fast-paced stories that they can get really engaged with and provide a sense of hope for them. It's not just about writing children's books, it's about what children's books themselves can do. They often contain that sense of hope, giving readers somewhere to escape to if they need it, a chance to walk in someone else's shoes. For young adults, reading allows them to ask questions of themselves and of the text as they seek an identity. It can open dialogues around a variety of subjects, showing that stories have power. Reading is an opportunity to lose yourself in another world. How many times can you remember reading a book and being so lost in it that you forget about the world going on around you? You have become part of that world. You are so immersed. The National Literacy Trust did some research into reading which highlights how much power stories can have, particularly when they showed the difference reading made during lockdown. Their research showed that 3 in 5 children said that reading during lockdown made them feel better, while 32% said it helped them when they were feeling sad about not seeing family and friends. This highlights the power that children's books can have. They can provide a safe place to escape into even during a pandemic. They were even shown to be reading more challenging books. Empathy Lab UK has been researching into empathy for many years. What is empathy? It is the ability to imagine and share someone else's feelings and perspectives. And reading can be all about creating empathy. Empathy Lab have, as can be seen here, an Empathy Day, which this year was 10th of June. Empathy Day is based on research that shows empathy is learnable, with books being one of the key tools, obviously. Each year they provide a Reading for Empathy guide, which lists books that are likely to encourage empathy and broaden horizons. It's possible to increase your empathy at any time in your life, whether as a child or as an adult, and books can play a role in this. Then even this month a research paper was published highlighting how children's books can be used in an intensive care unit to help with children's pain management, albeit briefly initially, because it increases their levels of oxytocin when children had stories read to them. The results of the research highlighted that storytelling and narrative fiction go well beyond simple entertainment value. The researchers went on to intimate that the parents could be used as a low-cost intervention, as they could be the ones reading stories to the children, thus helping them deal with the stress and fear of being on intensive care units. What I have done here is show you the different and positive impacts that children's books can have. As you can see, when a manuscript is published and becomes a book, an artifact, it becomes useful. It becomes part of children's literature, which is easy to use as a research subject. The originator, The writer, the creative practitioner, not quite so much. Because as Philip Pullman highlights, a storyteller should be invisible. This is where I can find myself becoming conflicted. This is a useful quote from the King's College Report. They go on to suggest developing a two-way dialogue between academia and the creative and cultural sector, which I feel is a brilliant idea and so important. Potentially, you could argue that it would involve the writer me having a dialogue with the academic me as part of a portfolio career. But seriously, and more importantly, it's about considering webs of influence, where they might be expected impact, but also unexpected impact, all of which have outcomes that will need to be mapped. It's considering your outputs and what reach they might have between academia and the creative and cultural sectors and the world beyond academia. This is where my conundrum starts. These are samples, these photos of impacts I have done, sort of keynotes with Melvyn Burgess, school visits, examples of work inspired by flight in schools, and social media engagement. Also, when I first wrote Flight, I did not write it with the intention it should be used to encourage empathy or discuss issues of well-being. It was not even on my radar. I was writing what I hoped was a thrilling historical adventure story. For me as a writer, these are all unexpected impacts. So my question is, how do I measure these? This is maybe where you split the writer-creator from the artifact, the book perhaps. The artifact achieves impact way beyond anything I had anticipated as a creator when I explored, researched and experimented while writing it. Often the response to the artifact of those outside the targeted community is purely anecdotal, potentially via social media. Is that credible enough now? It's important because adult readers giving feedback and evaluation beyond being gatekeepers potentially could give more weight to my research. For me at the moment, it's all about finding ways of using that anecdote and converting it into robust research that is measurable and credible, therefore underpinning that impact. Everything I do now is done through the lens of impact and knowledge exchange. I have created a spreadsheet where I list everything I do. When I do it, with whom, any links, how many attended, if appropriate, maybe even books sold, plus evaluations received. I have also listed potential things I could do as a reminder, such as websites, journal articles, social media, etc. It acts as an aide-memoire, making me think about what might have impact. Over the last few months, I have seen too many people caught out with recent impact studies, having to trawl around for evaluations for something 5 years ago, and it was their pain and experience that inspired this spreadsheet. Plus, I always find every year when I'm asked to fill in my knowledge exchange form that I never remember what I've done. I certainly won't remember by the next ref submission. It also means I can show my publisher so that they see that I am being proactive. As I mentioned at the beginning, this paper is speculative. I have no answers. I'm looking for ideas. I freely admit there are times when I am going round in circles. I could well be making this too complicated, so I would welcome your thoughts. Do you have ideas about ways I could do this better and how I can measure those unexpected impacts? The less predictable, moving beyond my assumed target audience. I would welcome any ideas or thoughts that you may have. Thank you for your time today, and I hope you enjoy the conference.